Hey everyone! Yes, I am still alive. Over this past year, I've encountered more and more virtual idol groups, specifically virtual K-pop groups, and I was wondering, I don't know, what is the longevity of this? I don't see it sticking around. Is it a gimmick? I just felt really weird about it, and I'm here to tell you I've had a change of heart. This whole topic is both fascinating and kind of scary, and overall, I'm just really captivated by it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 6 different virtual K-pop groups. Some are more K-pop than others, some are more virtual than others, and I hope that by the end of this video, you'll see why this topic is so interesting to me. So without further ado, let's check it out. First up, we have KDA. Now, yes, I can't say that this group is 100% K-pop, but i-dle does make up half of KDA, so I think that qualifies them enough. Now, I would say that KDA is one of the most prominent virtual groups out there, and there are many layers to them, which I will try to break down for you. If you're not familiar with them yet, KDA is a group that was developed by Riot Games, and they debuted on November 3rd, 2018 at the League of Legends World Championship opening ceremony, which coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, happened in South Korea. And yes, I am referring to that tiny little video game called League of Legends. Their name does actually refer to kills, deaths, and assists, which is obviously something in the video game. Their first ever performance was quite impactful. It blended both the virtual characters and the human singers into one explosive performance. And if that wasn't enough for you, their music videos are on a whole scale of their own. Or at least until recently. So KDA is made up of 4 members, which are characters or champions from the League of Legends video game, and each of them has a real human singer that blends their voice, their singing voice, to these characters. So the main thing for me here is that KDA really added new layers to the concept of what virtual idols could be. It was like this perfect intersection of video games, K-pop, and pop music, and this really augmented the experience for viewers and listeners, and that players could have as well. So personally for me, being able to live through the all-out era in 2020 was like nothing I've ever experienced. The feeling of listening to songs and then getting in the game with the KDA skins, specifically Kaisa for me, was just unparalleled. That multi-level multimedia experience is just chef's kiss. So unfortunately, this group has not been very active since the release of that all-out EP in 2020, but I do think that Riot Games achieved what they set out to do with KDA. And it's worth noting that a lot of people actually see KDA as more of a marketing tool to sell in-game products like skins, but the group actually did achieve some commercial success on charts in many countries and received multiple awards in the years that they were active. Now, if there's one group who's giving KDA a run for their money in terms of charts and mainstream exposure, it would definitely be this next one. I'm on the next level. So remember how I said KDA isn't 100% K-pop? Well, aespa is definitely 100% K-pop, but I can't say that they're 100% virtual. However, I do think that aespa represents the concept of virtual idols entering into the mainstream of the K-pop industry. So they definitely deserve to be included in this discussion. And there's actually a lot that I could say about aespa in this video, but I'm going to try to keep it short and maybe save some of those more complex ideas for another one. So as most of you probably already know, aespa is a 4-member group that debuted under SM Entertainment on November 17th, 2020 with their single Black Mamba. Overall, aespa has a lot of elements that traditional modern K-pop groups do have, But the reason they're on this list is that each member has a virtual I counterpart. And if you didn't know, the virtual aspect of this group is actually built into the name aespa. So A and E refer to avatar and experience, and then those are combined with the word aspect, referring to two sides. And overall, this is said to symbolize the idea of meeting another self and experiencing the new world. And if you follow them at all, you might know that that world is called Kwangya, or at least part of it. And I will say that they've done a decent job at incorporating some of this lore, some of their universe into their songs, music videos, and concepts and whatnot. And they've also released episodes that explain the story of aespa and the eyes and just their world overall. So while I do think that does manage to convey their story to a certain extent, and I do know that aespa has only released, a certain amount of music so far, I can't help but feel like there could have been more done with this virtual concept for them. Anyway, that is a topic for a whole other video, but aespa have definitely left their mark on the 4th generation of K-pop idols, and I think that their impact will be felt for many, many years to come. And interestingly, aespa have actually taken a bit of a departure from that virtual concept with their most recent release, so only time will tell where they go from here. But one thing is for sure, aespa has blown open the door for virtual K-pop idols to just come in and do their thing, and they definitely have been. So now we're entering territory here where I think many of you may not be as familiar with these next 4 groups, and they're ones that I've only encountered over the last year or so. The third group we're discussing today is called Eternity, and I have to admit that this is the group I'm most confused by and most concerned about their longevity. That doesn't mean that I don't think that they have potential and that I don't think they've been produced well. In fact, I actually think this company has been smart to take this approach with this group to make them stand out. So the group Eternity debuted with their song I'm Real on March 22nd, 2021 under the company Pulse 9. And I don't like to say this, but I think that many people would agree that their debut song was a little bit of a miss. You could tell it was quite experimental. I think even the voices were either heavily filtered or completely electronic. And I think even the company itself would agree with that statement. So if you couldn't tell by now, the approach that Eternity takes to this virtual concept is actually that they have their faces filtered onto real people. At least that's my understanding. It seems a little bit like the whole face swap thing that you may have seen on Snapchat or various different apps, but it's using, I believe it's using the actual members' faces and put on top of their face, but in a filtered way. Can you see how I'm confused here? And apparently this is done using AI technology called Deep Real. And with a couple of their recent releases, I think this is achieved pretty well for the most part, but the quality of the technology doesn't always seem consistent. So by no means am I here to criticize or critique their company and how they handle this group at all. I actually give them kudos for kind of owning up to what they're doing and experimenting and trying to innovate, even if this may be unsettling to some of you, and honestly, to me in certain occasions. I'm really curious to see what they do next. And I mentioned experimental. I think this company is actually one of the most experimental on this list. The company offers certain artificial intelligence services, and it almost seems to me like Eternity is almost meant to be like a gateway that brings people to Pulse 9. And I don't really want to advertise or like promote what they do, so I'm gonna leave you to it and decide if you want to look into that. But I found that quite interesting to kind of be like marketing their own services with this product, if that makes any sense. So let's just leave it there for now and move right along. SUPERKIND. Another very interesting group that has captivated my attention, and I found them I think about a year ago, if not more, and was actually when I started thinking about I want to make a video about this topic. But I'm glad I waited because so much has happened since then. And this is the video I came across 1 year ago that made me go, what the heck is this? I don't know. I don't know how this is real or how this is not real. I couldn't tell in some places if this was a real person or not, to be honest. Maybe I'm just dumb. But what is different about this group is they have both virtual and real human members. Wait, isn't that aespa? No, actually not at all. These are like kind of units within one group, but they coexist and are part of the group. These aren't virtual counterparts. The virtual members are their own individual entities, their own personalities. They're kind of like the humans have one unit, the AI virtual members have one unit, and combined they're the full SUPERKIND group. So SUPERKIND officially debuted under Deep Studio Entertainment on June 20th, 2022 with their song Watch Out. Although technically the group is a reincarnation of an earlier project by this company called Yours, that I believe one of the members, the virtual ones, was a part of. So far, the group has released a couple of songs and music videos, but I would say I don't think that's really where their main focus is or really where their strengths lie or what makes them stand out so far. I think what they've been doing a really good job with is their social media presence and their content creation. They really keep up with trends and really know how to leverage the virtual members to give a unique spin on a lot of social media, TikTok trends and whatnot. Anyway, it's very fascinating to me to see how they integrate the virtual members into the same scenes as the humans. They do this in both music videos and in performances, and you can see they get a little creative with how much screen time or how present they are in certain ways. I am just really interested to see what they keep doing. I kind of cackle when I see the virtual members doing the next TikTok trend. They've got a really interesting dynamic. So there's some interesting things to be had there, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on them. All right, on to the fifth group, MAVE. Now, I would say that that sounded like I was about to give a TED Talk on ASS. I would say that after aespa, if aespa actually counts as a virtual group, MAVE would be, one of the first groups to really break the mainstream as a virtual idol group, in my opinion. I was seeing people covering their dances, I saw them show up on music shows, and there's a reason to explain how they got the exposure that they got. It's a pretty easy explanation. Cacao. And I will have more on that in a second. So MAVE is a 4-member group who debuted earlier this year on January 25th, 2023 with their song Pandora. And I actually ended up liking this song quite a bit. Their name is a reference to the phrase "make new wave." The group is under a company called Metaverse Entertainment, which I found out is a subsidiary of Netmarble, which just so happens to be South Korea's largest mobile gaming company. And on top of this, Metaverse Entertainment actually partnered with Kakao Entertainment to manage musical artists, which, if you don't know the name Kakao, is a huge company in South Korea. Pretty much everyone in Korea uses Kakao Talk for texting, so they've got the reach and the influence. Not to mention a lot of money. Anyway, back to the main topic. So MAVE's visuals and their production value is of course really impressive, and their visuals are basically on the level of KDA's, and I would say more consistently well done. And what I find really interesting about this group is their potential for expansion into various different areas, given how well placed they are in the industry. Like I said, mobile gaming company and Kakao Entertainment, like you can go really far with that. And in fact, They actually have their own webtoon, which I believe was published by Kakao. I believe it's about, explaining MAVE's universe. I believe they live in the future. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I think what really made me go, oh, this is different, is when I saw them show up on Music Core on my recommended videos on YouTube. Because I had seen the video, the music video, and I thought, that was interesting. I probably will just listen to this a couple times and move on with my life. But nope, I really got into that song, and I know people are begging for them to have a comeback, so real or not, the impact is real. So anyway, I am very excited to see what MAVE does next, and I will say one of the most hilarious things I've seen this year was when there were dating rumors between one of the SUPERKIND virtual members and one of the MAVE members, and SUPERKIND actually addressed it on TikTok. So that is the only kind of dating news that I have time for and that I want to see on any news website going forward. Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, PLAVE. Now, I believe it's purely coincidental that MAVE and PLAVE have very similar names. The group's name is actually taken from the English word play and the French word rêve. So combine those two together, you get PLAVE. PLAVE is a 5-member group who also debuted earlier this year on March 12th, 2023 with the song Wait For You. And they are actually under a company called VLAST, or I believe pronounced just Blast in Korean, who I found out is affiliated with MBC, which is a very big broadcasting company in Korea. And yeah, like MAVE, I think the level of exposure they're getting now does make sense given the context and the placement that they have within the industry. So the first song they released wasn't quite my cup of tea. I found it to be a little bit melodramatic, but I was really intrigued by, of course, the fact that they're a virtual group, and they also showed up on MBC Music Core like MAVE. So that kind of just, again, I was like, how is this happening? Who authorized this? And is this real? Well, it's virtual, but I mean, it's really happening. Then I started seeing their live streams show up on my YouTube and on my TikTok, and that was where I realized, hold on, PLAVE is doing something entirely different from the other 5 groups on this list. They are basically VTubers that are K-pop idols, and I was like, how has this not happened before? In fact, I think it has been happening before, but anyways, it wasn't on my radar. Okay, that was a tangent, but basically I kind of fell into them because I was seeing, their bloopers from live streams showing up, and I was just really fascinated by who they were and the fact that there really were real relatable human beings behind this that had a sense of humor, that have the talent, that have charisma, but are conveying it through a completely different medium from the traditional K-pop group. And the nail in the coffin was when I found their side track, which I just found a little more palatable for me, more catchy, and their more recent song, Why, same thing. I'm hooked. So the music is good quality, the visuals are interesting, and most important element here that helps them stand out is they have that humanity to them, which is super ironic considering they're virtual idols. But because they're using that motion capture technology, which I believe, would be bodysuits and sensors and whatnot, they're really able to come across as more human than any of the other groups on this list, at least in my opinion, and is why I think they have the most potential and why I think we'll see more groups like this coming up. So yeah, I've personally never really been into VTubers or really into streaming that much in general, but something about having the K-pop twist with that has really captivated my attention. Like I said, I'll be keeping my eye on them, and with all of the glitches just adding to their notoriety, it seems like they really can't do any wrong. Like, there's a full article on it. So I'm looking forward to whatever they have in store for us. Well, that was a bit of a roller coaster ride, but that is just a glimpse into the world of virtual K-pop idols, and I'm really curious to know how you all feel about this whole topic, this whole conversation, and where you think this is going. And at first, I did think these groups seemed kind of gimmicky, but I can now see that if it's done right, I think these groups have huge, almost limitless potential and the ability to tap into audiences that, you know, maybe people who are already familiar with K-pop and some who aren't familiar with K-pop, like the VTuber fans or the video game fans or the webtoon fans. Like it's just, there's so many things you can do with this. Now, the big question here that I think may be on your mind, and that's also on my mind, is are these virtual idols going to replace real human K-pop idols? Are they competing with them? Are they a threat to them? You could argue yes, but I actually think in the long run, no. And here's why. I had a bit of a realization that in other industries, so let's, look at TV or movies, for example, you have live action movies, but you also have animated movies. And those two things can exist in the same industry, the same world, and not necessarily take away from one another. They can both exist successfully. You can have real human actors and you can have voice actors. Very, different skills, I would say, but related, but not necessarily competing with one another. So that's kind of how I see this movement, is it's like we're now having voice actors create this new genre in K-pop. And of course, I mean like voice singers that are singing as characters. And that's why I don't think it's really a threat to human K-pop idols, because I think people that want to stan real humans will continue to do so. But now there will be people who like to stan these virtual ones. And at the end of the day, these character models, the songs that go into them, the visuals, the music videos, that is still someone's art. There's still people working behind these things to give you a product. And I think the virtual thing, the fear of artificial intelligence and whatnot, I don't think is necessarily a reason to discredit the art that they're putting into the world. I also honestly think that it's less harmful for fans to form parasocial relationships with fictional characters than it is to form parasocial relationships with real humans that they don't know. But that is just my personal opinion, and I don't know, I just think it's another benefit, right? Like these people, they can create art, they can put out music, be a character and have the privacy that a real human would, probably not get into as many scandals, minus the occasional dating scandal apparently. So I don't know, one day I just realized there's actually a lot of positives here. And I'm very curious to see if you think that. If you have other counter arguments that I haven't thought of, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on the whole virtual idol thing in the comments down below. I'm gonna end on this last thought. So what I want to finish by saying is that many K-pop agencies these days have had a pretty standard formula for how to produce idol groups. This is something that's been around since the 90s, and it was already becoming a formula at that time. That's not to say that there aren't new things that happen, but hey, we're like in this 4th generation, probably heading into a 5th generation soon at some point, which might be virtual idols. And I think the K-pop industry could use, some innovation and something that pushes people to try new things and to experiment. So I think whether or not virtual idols stick around, they'll still serve, a purpose to explore and maybe help the industry evolve in a way that it hasn't already. Does that make sense? I don't know. I hope you got the point, but I'm gonna leave it there because I could keep ranting on all day, and I hope that you learned something new in this video. I'm actually curious to know if you already knew all of these groups, and if you know other groups that I didn't mention in this video, please let me know in the comments down below. So I'll leave it there for today. I do hope to keep making videos, although of course you can see I'm very inconsistent. So thanks so much for sticking around, for still caring about what I have to say, and I hope to see you next time. Stay awkward. Bye.